Part 1. The day the sky burned. The year was 2347, and humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 5 years ago. Most alien species thought humans were weak and unimportant. They called Earth a small blue rock on the edge of nowhere. They laughed at human technology and said it was like watching children play with toys. Admiral Catherine Cole did not care what aliens thought. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years. She had gray hair now and lines on her face from too many battles. But her eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still quick. She stood on the observation deck of the orbital station Genesis, drinking coffee and watching the stars. It was a quiet morning, the kind of morning where nothing bad could happen. Then the alarm started. Screaming, Lieutenant Daniel Perry ran to his console. His hands were shaking as he read the data. "Admiral, we have ships dropping out of hyperspace." "Many ships." Catherine put down her coffee. "How many?" Daniel's face went white. 400 capital ships. Maybe 1,000 vessels total when you count the smaller ones. Catherine walked to the window and looked out. She could see them now. Hundreds of dark shapes blocking out the stars. The ships were ugly and brutal, covered in spikes and weapons. She knew those ships. Everyone in the galaxy knew those ships. The Vrakari had come. The Vrakari were reptile creatures with green scales and yellow eyes. They had conquered 17 civilizations in the past 100 years. They did not negotiate. They did not make treaties. They simply destroyed everything in their path and took what they wanted. Catherine opened a channel to Earth. "This is Admiral Cole. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. Begin evacuation of coastal cities immediately." On Earth, people looked up at the sky and saw fire. The Vrakari began their bombardment without warning. Massive energy beams cut through the atmosphere and struck the ground. Cities that had stood for centuries became ash in seconds. New York was hit first, then Los Angeles, then Tokyo, London, Sydney. The death toll climbed so fast that computers could not keep count. In the city of Chicago, a man named Samuel Grant grabbed his 2 daughters and ran for the underground shelters. He was a schoolteacher, not a soldier. He had never fired a gun in his life. But when a Vrakari soldier appeared in front of him, blocking the shelter entrance, Samuel did not hesitate. He picked up a piece of broken concrete and attacked. The alien was bigger and stronger. It had armor and weapons. Samuel had nothing but rage and desperation. The fight lasted only seconds. The Vrakari killed him easily, but in those seconds, his daughters reached the shelter. They survived because their father refused to run. This scene repeated itself millions of times across Earth. Ordinary people with no training and no weapons stood against monsters from the stars. Most of them died, but they did not die running. They died fighting. Far away on the planet Thesara Prime, the Galactic Council watched everything happen. The Council was made up of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They had great fleets and advanced technology. They could have helped Earth. They chose not to. High Councilor Varaith was the leader of the council. He was an ancient creature with silver scales and 6 eyes. He had ruled for 300 years, and he had seen many species rise and fall. "The humans should surrender," he said calmly. "Perhaps the Vrakari will show mercy." Ambassador Zira stood alone in the human section of the council chamber. She was 64 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her whole life trying to make the galaxy accept humanity. Now she watched her home burn. "Help us," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Send your fleets. The Vrakari will not stop with Earth. Today, it is us. Tomorrow it could be you." Vareth laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. The Council does not interfere in territorial disputes. Earth is too far away, too unimportant. We will observe and document. Nothing more. Zira felt something break inside her. Not her spirit. Her faith. She had believed that the galaxy was civilized, that advanced species would help those in need. Now she understood the truth. The galaxy was not civilized. It was a jungle, and humanity was alone. She straightened her back and looked directly at Vareth. "You will regret this decision," she said. "I do not know how or when, but you will regret it." Vareth smiled with all three of his mouths. "Unlikely. Your species will be extinct within a week." Back in Earth orbit, Admiral Catherine Cole was fighting a battle she could not win. Earth's fleet had 63 ships. The Vrikari had nearly 1,000. The math was simple and terrible, but Catherine did not care about math. "All ships form a defensive line," she ordered. "We hold them here as long as possible. Every minute we buy is another minute for evacuations on the ground." Her flagship was called the Liberty. It was old and slow compared to Vrikari warships, but it had good weapons and a crew that refused to give up. The battle was brutal. Earth ships exploded one after another. For every Vrikari ship they destroyed, they lost 10 of their own. The space around Earth became filled with debris and bodies. On the bridge of the Liberty, Daniel Perry reported the losses. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders. "We have lost 42 ships, Admiral. Only 21 remain combat effective." Catherine nodded. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she was screaming. Those ships had crews, families, dreams, all gone. "Continue fighting," she said. A Vrikari commander sent a message. His face appeared on the view screen, reptilian and arrogant. "Human female, you have fought well for a primitive species. Surrender now, and I will kill you quickly. Continue fighting, and I will make your death last for days." Catherine looked at that alien face. She thought about the cities burning on Earth. She thought about parents dying to save their children. She thought about everything humanity had built over thousands of years, now turning to ash. "I have a counteroffer," she said. "Leave now, and we will let you live." The Vrikari commander laughed. "You are insane." Catherine smiled. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Maybe," she said, "but I am still fighting. And I will keep fighting until my ship is dust. Then I will climb onto your ship and fight you with my bare hands. Because that is what humans do. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We fight until there is nothing left." She closed the channel. The battle continued. On the ground, in space, across the entire Earth system, humanity fought back. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. They were dying by the millions, but they were not beaten. Not yet. Part 2. The Fury Awakens. The emergency broadcast reached every corner of Earth. It played on televisions, phones, radios, and public screens. The message was simple. Humanity needed soldiers. Anyone who could fight was asked to report to the nearest military station. The response was beyond anything the military had expected. Commander Nathan Brooks was 73 years old. He had retired from the Defense Force 15 years ago. His knees hurt. His back hurt. He needed glasses to read. But when he heard the broadcast, he did not hesitate. He pulled his old uniform out of the closet, put it on, and drove to the nearest base. The young soldier at the gate looked at him with surprise. "Sir, with respect, this is for combat volunteers." Nathan stared at him. "Son, I was killing enemies before your parents were born. Now let me through, or I will walk over you." The soldier let him through. Nathan was not alone. Across Earth, retired soldiers, former pilots, and old veterans came out of retirement. They came with white hair and wrinkled faces. They came with old injuries and fading memories. But they came ready to fight. In Texas, a woman named Betty Collins showed up at a recruiting station. She was 81 years old and walked with a cane. She had been a combat medic 50 years ago. "I cannot shoot straight anymore," she told the officer. "But I can still patch holes in people. Put me in a hospital." They'd put her in a hospital. She worked for 72 hours without sleep, saving lives until she collapsed from exhaustion. The young soldiers watched these old warriors with wonder. They had grown up in peacetime. They had never seen real war. But these old people, these grandparents and great-grandparents, they remembered. And they had come to teach the young ones how to fight in Geneva, at the Strategic Command Center. General Victor Hayes was trying to coordinate the defense of Earth. He was a big man with broad shoulders and a shaved head. He had fought in small wars before, border conflicts and pirate raids. Nothing had prepared him for this. His aide came running into his office. "Sir, there is a woman here to see you. She says she has something important." Victor looked up from his maps. "I do not have time for visitors." "Sir, she says her name is Dr. Linda Morgan. She says she can end this war." Victor paused. He knew that name. Linda Morgan had been a military scientist 20 years ago. She had worked on advanced weapons research until the government cut her funding. They said her projects were too dangerous, too expensive, too theoretical. Send her in. Linda walked into the office. She was 60 years old, with short gray hair and sharp eyes behind thick glasses. She carried a small metal case in her hands like it was made of glass. "General Hayes," she said, "I need you to listen to me carefully. I do not have time to explain everything. But inside this case is the key to defeating the Vrkari." She opened the case. Inside was a data drive, small and ordinary looking. 20 years ago, I discovered a way to create artificial singularities. Microscopic black holes that exist for less than a second. When they collapse, they release enormous of energy. Enough energy to destroy a starship from the inside. Victor stared at her. "That is impossible. The physics alone would require—" "I know what it requires," Linda interrupted. "I spent 30 years figuring it out. The government told me it was too dangerous. They were probably right. But right now, dangerous is exactly what we need." Victor thought about the cities burning outside. He thought about the millions already dead. He thought about his own daughter, hiding in a shelter somewhere, hoping her father would save her. "How long to build it?" he asked. "Normally 6 weeks. But if you give me everything I need, every resource, every engineer, every piece of equipment, I can do it in 4 days." Victor picked up his phone. "Get me the president." In orbit, Admiral Catherine Cole was still fighting. The Liberty had taken heavy damage. Half her crew was dead. The ship was held together by emergency repairs and stubborn determination. But reinforcements were coming. Not military ships. Civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports. Ordinary people had taken their ships and flown them into battle. A mining ship called the Lucky Strike flew directly at a Vrkari destroyer. Its captain was a woman named Rachel Torres. She was 45 years old and had spent her whole life digging rocks out of asteroids. "This is the lucky strike to any Earth ships," she broadcast. "I am going to ram that ugly lizard ship. When I hit, shoot whatever is left." Catherine grabbed the radio. "Lucky strike negative. Pull back. That is suicide." Rachel laughed. "Admiral, I have been watching my planet burn for 2 days. My husband was in New York. My sons were in Los Angeles. I have nothing left to lose and a whole lot of anger to spend. Lucky strike out." The mining ship accelerated. The Vrkari destroyer tried to shoot it down, but Rachel flew like a woman possessed. She dodged and weaved through enemy fire. Getting closer and closer at the last second, she sent one final message. Tell them we did not go quietly. The lucky strike hit the destroyer at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. Catherine watched the explosion with tears in her eyes. Then she wiped her face and turned back to her crew. You heard her. Shoot whatever is left. The Earth ships fired everything they had. The damaged destroyer broke apart under the assault. On the Vakari command ship, Fleet Commander Cresseth watched the battle with growing frustration. This should have been easy. Earth was supposed to fall in days. Instead, the humans were fighting like demons. What is wrong with these creatures? He growled. They are losing. They must know they are losing. Why do they not surrender? His second officer had no answer. Cresseth ordered more ships into the battle. He would crush these stubborn humans if it took every ship in his fleet. On the ground, the fighting was even more brutal. Vakari soldiers had landed in major cities across the world. They expected easy victory. They found something very different in the ruins of Chicago. A group of human soldiers, led by Sergeant Maria Santos, held a defensive position in a collapsed shopping mall. They had been fighting for 36 hours. They were out of food, almost out of ammunition, and completely surrounded. How many of them? Maria asked her scout. At least 200. Maybe more. Maria looked at her soldiers. There were only 15 of them left. Young faces, scared but determined. Okay, she said. Here is the plan. We are going to charge them. One of the soldiers, a young man named Kevin Park, stared at her. Sergeant, that is insane. I know. Maria checked her rifle. But they expect us to hide. They expect us to wait for death. Instead, we are going to run straight at them, screaming and shooting. We will kill as many as we can before they kill us. And maybe, just maybe, we will scare them enough that they think twice before attacking the next group of humans they meet. She stood up. Who is with me? 15 soldiers stood up with her. They charged. 72 hours after the invasion began, Earth was still fighting. The planet was burning. Millions were dead. The fleet was almost destroyed. But deep underground, Dr. Linda Morgan was working on something that would change everything. 4 days. She just needed 4 more days. Part 3. The Council bears witness on the planet Dasara Prime. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species watched the holographic displays showing the battle for Earth. They had expected to see a quick victory for the Vakari. A simple conquest, over in days. Instead, they saw something that made no sense. The humans were still fighting. High Counselor Varath sat on his throne, his 6 eyes fixed on the display. He had lived for 300 years. He had watched countless species rise and fall. He thought he understood how the universe worked. He was beginning to realize that he was wrong. This is impossible, said Delegate Mortian, a being made of pure energy who served as the Council's military advisor. The humans have lost 80% of their fleet. Their cities are destroyed. Their casualties are in the billions. By every calculation, they should have surrendered days ago. Counselor Ethis, a tall creature with silver skin and no face, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Perhaps we do not understand humans as well as we thought. Varath made a dismissive sound. They are primitives. Emotional creatures driven by instinct rather than logic. They're simply too stupid to know when they have lost. Ambassador Zira stood in the human section of the chamber, watching and listening. She had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands shook from exhaustion and grief, but she was still standing. You are wrong, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire chamber. Humans are not fighting because we are stupid. We are fighting because we refuse to accept death. Varath laughed. All species fear death. It is natural, but wise species know when to accept the inevitable. Zira turned to face him directly. That is the difference between your species and mine. You see death as inevitable. We see it as an enemy to be defeated. The display showed new images from Earth, ground combat in the ruins of Moscow. Human soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, charging Vakari positions with bayonets and bare hands. Many of them were wounded. Some were missing limbs. All of them were still fighting. A Vakari ground commander's transmission was captured and broadcast to the chamber. His reptilian face was covered in blood, and his yellow eyes were wide with something the Council had never seen in a Vakari before. Fear. These creatures are insane, the commander hissed. We kill them and they keep coming. We wound them and they crawl toward us. I saw a human with both legs gone drag himself across the ground to attack one of my soldiers with a knife. What are these things? The transmission cut off in the council chamber. No one spoke. The delegates from peaceful species looked at the displays with horror. The delegates from warrior species looked at them with something like respect. Mortian finally broke the silence. I have analyzed the human tactics. They are not random. They are calculated. The humans are trading lives for time. Vareth frowned. What do you mean? Every suicide attack, every desperate charge, every ship that rams instead of retreats, they are all buying time. The humans are not trying to win this battle. They are trying to survive long enough for something else to happen. Counselor Ethos nodded slowly. They are building something. Or waiting for something. Their sacrifice has purpose. Vareth waved his hand dismissively. What could they possibly build that would change anything? Their technology is primitive. Their industry is burning. They have nothing. Zira smiled. It was a small, tired smile, but it made Vareth uncomfortable. You do not know humans, she said. When we are comfortable, we are lazy. We fight among ourselves over stupid things. We waste our potential on entertainment and pleasure. She paused, and her smile grew cold. But when we are threatened, when our survival is at stake, we become something else entirely. We stop fighting each other and unite against the common enemy. We stop wasting time and focus every resource on one goal. We become dangerous. On the display, a new transmission appeared. It was from Earth's Strategic Command. General Victor Hayes stood in front of a massive facility, surrounded by scientists and engineers. People of Earth, he said, I know you are tired. I know you are scared. I know many of you have lost everything. But I am asking you to hold on a little longer. In less than 24 hours, we will have a weapon that can end this war. Every minute you fight is a minute closer to victory. Do not give up. Do not surrender. Hold the line. The transmission ended. Vareth stared at the display. A weapon? What kind of weapon could they possibly have developed in 4 days? No one had an answer. On the Vakari command ship, Fleet Commander Krasith received the same transmission. He called his senior officers to the war room. The humans claim to have a weapon, he said. I do not believe them. It is probably a lie to boost morale. But I'm not taking chances. We will increase the bombardment. Destroy every major facility on the planet. Whatever they are building, we will bury it. His officers obeyed. The Vakari fleet began a massive assault on Earth's remaining infrastructure. Factories, research centers, military bases, everything was targeted. In Geneva, General Hayes watched the bombardment from his command bunker. The ceiling shook with every impact. Dust fell from the walls. Alarms screamed warnings about incoming fire. He picked up his communicator. Dr. Morgan, status report. Linda's voice came back, calm despite the chaos. We are on schedule, General. The facility is deep enough to survive anything short of a direct hit. We will be ready in 18 hours. Make it 12. I do not think we have 8 hours left. There was a pause. I will try. In orbit, Admiral Catherine Cole was down to her last 8 ships. The Liberty was barely functional. Her engines were failing, her weapons were nearly empty, and half her systems were running on backup power, but she was still fighting. A young officer named Timothy Shaw approached her on the bridge. He was 22 years old, fresh out of the academy. He had joined the Navy expecting a career of peaceful patrols and diplomatic missions. Instead, he was fighting for the survival of his species. "Admiral," he said, "I have analyzed our remaining resources. At current rate of engagement, we will be completely destroyed within 6 hours. Catherine nodded. "I know, Admiral." Timothy hesitated. "Are we going to survive this?" Catherine looked at him. She saw the fear in his eyes, but also the determination. He was young, but he was not running. He was standing at his post, doing his duty, even though he knew death was coming. "I do not know," she said honestly. "But I know this, we have held them for 4 days. 4 days longer than anyone expected. 4 days longer than any species in galactic history has held against the Rakari. Whatever happens next, we have already done the impossible." She put her hand on his shoulder. "And if we are going to die, we are going to die making them pay for every second." Timothy straightened his back. "Yes, Admiral." On the Sara Prime, the Council continued to watch. The delegates had stopped talking. They simply stared at the displays, unable to look away. Vareth sat motionless on his throne. He had ruled for 300 years by understanding power, by knowing when to fight and when to submit, by always choosing the winning side. For the first time in his life, he was not sure which side was winning. Ambassador Zira stood alone, watching her planet burn. Tears ran down her face, but her voice was steady. 12 more hours, she whispered. "Just hold on for 12 more hours." The battle continued. Part 4. The storm breaks deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland. Dr. Linda Morgan stood in front of a wall of computer screens. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her hands trembled from too much coffee. She had not eaten in 30 hours, but she was smiling. "Run the final diagnostic," she said. Her lead engineer, a young man named Andrew Kim, typed rapidly on his console. Numbers and graphs filled the screens. Green lights appeared one after another. "All systems nominal," Andrew said. His voice cracked with emotion. "Doctor, it works. It actually works." Linda let out a breath she had been holding for 4 days. "Contact General Hayes. Tell him the Prometheus array is ready." The message traveled through buried cables and secret frequencies until it reached the command bunker in Geneva. General Hayes received it while watching the latest casualty reports. The numbers were horrible. Over 4 billion dead. Most of Earth's cities destroyed. The military reduced to fragments. But now they had a chance. He opened a channel to Admiral Cole. "Admiral, Prometheus is online. We are uploading target coordinates now. On your command." Catherine was standing on the bridge of the Liberty. Her ship was dying around her. Fires burned in 3 sections. Life support was failing. Only 40 crew members remained from an original complement of 400. But they were still fighting. She looked at the tactical display. The Rakari fleet had been reduced from nearly 1,000 ships to 217. It had cost humanity almost everything to achieve that. The space around Earth was filled with wreckage and frozen bodies. "Upload confirmed," her tactical officer reported. "All satellites are in position. Prometheus array is locked on 217 targets." Catherine thought about what was about to happen. 217 ships filled with living beings. Even if those beings were monsters who had killed billions of her people, they were still alive. And she was about to end them. For a moment, she hesitated, Then she remembered. New York, Los Angeles, London, Moscow, Beijing. She remembered the faces of her crew members who had died. She remembered the screams she had heard over the radio as cities burned. Her hesitation vanished. Fire, she said. On Earth, the Prometheus array activated. 27 satellites, hidden among the debris of destroyed space stations and dead ships, came to life. Each one contained the technology that Dr. Linda Morgan had spent 30 years developing: artificial singularity generators. The satellites fired simultaneously. In the heart of each Vakari ship, something impossible happened. A point of infinite density appeared, smaller than an atom, lasting less than a nanosecond. A microscopic black hole. When a black hole collapses, it releases all its energy at once. The physics are simple but terrifying. Matter becomes energy. Energy becomes destruction. 217 ships ceased to exist in the same moment. On the bridge of the Liberty, the crew watched their displays in stunned silence. 1 second, the Vakari fleet was there. The next second, it was gone. Not retreating. Not surrendering. Just gone. Timothy Shaw was the first to speak. Did we win? Catherine stared at the empty space where the enemy fleet had been. Slowly, she began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had been certain of death and suddenly found themselves alive. Yes, she said. We won. On the Sara Prime, the Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed in languages that had no words for what they had witnessed. Some ran for the exits. Others stood frozen, unable to process what they had seen. High Counselor Vareth gripped the arms of his throne so hard that his claws left marks in the ancient wood. His 6 eyes were wide with terror. Singularity weapons, Mortian said, his energy form flickering wildly. They developed singularity weapons. In 4 days, while being invaded. This is not possible. The technology required, the energy requirements, the precision needed to create stable micro-singularities. And yet they did it, Counselor Ethos said quietly. The humans did the impossible. Vareth finally found his voice. This changes nothing. They have one weapon. Once we understand how it works, we can develop countermeasures. The humans are still weak. Still primitive. Still what? Ambassador Zira stepped forward. Her tears had dried. Her voice was strong. Still standing? Still alive? Still holding the weapon that just destroyed the most feared fleet in the galaxy. She walked toward Vareth's throne, and for the first time, he leaned back. You called us primitive, Zira continued. You called us emotional. You called us unimportant. You watched our planet burn and did nothing. You calculated the cost of helping us and decided we were not worth it. She stopped at the base of the throne and looked up at the ancient ruler. Remember this moment, Counselor. Remember what primitive, emotional, unimportant humans can do when you leave us no other choice. On Earth, the surviving Vakari ground forces received word of the fleet's destruction. Their commander, a scarred veteran named Krasith, stood in the ruins of what had once been Berlin. He had lost contact with the orbiting ships. He had lost contact with the homeworld. He had lost everything. A human officer approached under a white flag. Her name was Colonel Patricia Wells, and she had been fighting without sleep for 5 days. Your fleet is gone, she said simply. You can continue fighting and die. Or you can surrender and live. Choose. Krasith looked at her. She was small and thin, covered in dust and blood. She should have looked weak. Instead, she looked like the most dangerous creature he had ever seen. For the first time in his life, he understood what his soldiers had been reporting. These humans were not like other species. They did not know when to quit. They did not accept defeat. They fought until they won or died, and often they found ways to do both at the same time. He lowered his weapon and knelt. We surrender. Around the world, Frakari forces followed their commander's example. Some human soldiers accepted the surrender with cold professionalism. Others, who had lost families and friends to the invasion, were less forgiving. There were incidents, executions, revenge. No one tried very hard to stop them. In Geneva, General Hayes received the reports of victory with grim satisfaction. He was too tired to celebrate. Too aware of the cost. Dr. Linda Morgan joined him in the command bunker. She looked as exhausted as he felt. We won, she said. Yes. Hayes looked at the casualty reports. 4.3 billion dead. 70% of our cities destroyed. Most of our fleet gone. Most of our industry gone. He paused. But we won. Linda sat down heavily in a chair. What happens now? Now we rebuild. And we make sure this never happens again. Hayes looked at her. Your weapon. Can we make more of them? Yes, many more. And we can make them bigger, more powerful, more precise. Hayes nodded slowly. Good, because the Rakari were not the only threat in this galaxy. And after what happened here, every species in the universe knows that Earth is vulnerable. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, smoke rose from the ruined city. Rescue crews searched the rubble for survivors. The sky was dark with ash. We were alone in this fight, he said. The council watched us die and did nothing. They calculated the cost and decided we were not worth saving. His voice hardened. We need to make sure they never make that calculation again. On the Sar Prime, Vareth sat alone in his chambers after the council session ended. He was thinking about what he had seen, thinking about what it meant. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had never been defeated. They had developed technology that should have taken decades in just 4 days. And they had done it while their world burned around them. For the first time in 300 years, Vareth felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. Part 5. The New Order. 6 months had passed since the invasion. Earth was still scarred. Cities remained in ruins. Graveyards stretched for miles. Every family had lost someone. Every street held memories of the dead. But humanity was not broken. Factories worked day and night, building new ships, new weapons, new defenses. Engineers who had been designing consumer products now designed warships. Scientists who had been studying abstract theories now created weapons of war. Children who had dreamed of becoming artists or teachers now trained to become soldiers. Earth had learned a hard lesson. The galaxy was not a safe place, and no one was coming to save them. Admiral Catherine Cole stood before the Galactic Council on the Sara Prime. She had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after the invasion, the highest military rank in human history. Her uniform was covered in medals. Her face was covered in new scars. Behind her stood a delegation of human officers, scientists, and diplomats. Ambassador Zero was among them, looking older but stronger than she had 6 months ago. The council chamber was full. Every species had sent representatives. Some came out of curiosity. Some came out of fear. All of them came to see what humanity would do next. High Counselor Vareth sat on his throne, trying to look calm. He was not succeeding. Fleet Admiral Cole, he said, the council welcomes you. We are pleased to see that humanity has survived this unfortunate incident. Catherine stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Unfortunate incident. Her voice was flat. 4.3 billion people died. That is what you call an unfortunate incident? Vareth shifted uncomfortably. A poor choice of words. The council regrets. The council regrets nothing. Catherine stepped forward. You watched us burn. You calculated the cost of helping us and decided we were not worth it. That was your right. The Council has no obligation to protect its members." She paused. "But understand this. We remember every species that sent condolences while our cities fell. Every delegate who spoke of regrettable necessity while our children died. We remember all of it." The chamber was silent. No one dared to speak. "You believed we were weak because we were young," Catherine continued. "You thought our technology was primitive, our military was small, our civilization was unimportant. You were wrong." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a fleet of ships, more ships than anyone in the Council had ever seen. "This is the new Earth Defense Fleet," Catherine said. 300 warships, each one equipped with Prometheus technology. More are being built every day. Within a year, we will have over 1,000. Within 5 years, we will have the largest fleet in the galaxy. The delegates stared at the display with horror. "We did not build this fleet to threaten you," Catherine said. "We built it because we learned that no one else will protect us. We learned that the galaxy is a dangerous place, and the strong survive while the weak die." She turned to face the full assembly. "But we also learned something else. We learned what it feels like to face extinction alone. We learned the terror of watching your world burn while others do nothing. And we decided that no one else should have to learn that lesson." Ambassador Zira stepped forward. "Humanity is proposing a new treaty, a mutual defense pact. Any species that joins will be protected by Earth's fleet. Any attack on one member will be treated as an attack on all members." Vareth found his voice. "And what do you want in return?" Catherine smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Nothing. We are not doing this for payment. We are doing this because it is right. Because someone should have helped us, and no one did. Because we refuse to be the kind of species that watches others suffer and does nothing." The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. This was unprecedented. No species in galactic history had ever offered to protect others without demanding something in return. A delegate from a small, peaceful species called the Illyri stood up. Her people had been threatened by larger neighbors for centuries. They had survived by hiding and hoping to be overlooked. "We accept," she said simply. Another delegate stood. Then another. Within an hour, 37 species had joined the pact. Vareth watched with growing alarm. The political order he had maintained for 300 years was crumbling before his eyes. Humanity was not just surviving. They were reshaping the galaxy. "This is madness," he said. "You cannot protect everyone. You will stretch your resources too thin. You will make enemies of the powerful species who prey on the weak." Catherine nodded. "Probably. But we are going to try anyway. Because that is who we are now. We are the species that fights when everyone else runs. We are the species that protects when everyone else abandons. We are the species that does impossible things because someone has to." She stepped closer to Vareth's throne. "The Vakari learned what happens when you attack. Earth, they knelt before us and begged for mercy. Now they are our allies, bound by a warrior's respect that your kind will never understand." She leaned forward. "Do not make the same mistake they did, Counselor. Do not assume that our kindness is weakness. We are offering friendship. We strongly suggest you accept it." 3 years later, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The human alliance included over 100 species. Earth ships patrolled the borders of dozens of worlds. Human soldiers trained the militaries of peaceful civilizations. Human engineers helped build defenses for species that had never fought a war. And whenever an aggressive species threatened a weaker one, humanity responded. The Keth Collective tried to invade a small farming world called Syrah. They sent 50 warships to conquer a planet with no military. They did not expect the human fleet that arrived 3 hours later. Admiral Catherine Cole commanded the response personally. She gave the Keth one chance to withdraw. They refused. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Every Keth ship was destroyed. On Syrah, the farmers watched the explosions in the sky and wept with relief. They had been certain of death. Instead, they had been saved by a species they had never met, from a world they had never visited. When Catherine's shuttle landed on the surface, the Syrah crowded around it. Their leader, an elderly being with gentle eyes, approached her. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why did you help us?" "We have nothing to offer you. We are not important." Catherine thought about the question. She thought about Earth, burning under Vakari bombardment. She thought about the Council watching and doing nothing. She thought about all the people who died because no one came to help. "Because someone once told me that we were not important enough to save," she said. "They were wrong. Everyone is important enough to save." She looked up at the stars, and now we have the power to prove it. Back on Earth, Ambassador Syrah sat in her office, reading the latest diplomatic reports. She was 81 years old now, retired from active duty, but still advising the government. Her walls were covered with awards and commendations from dozens of grateful species. A young aide knocked on her door. "Ma'am, there is a message from the Outer Rim. Another species is requesting membership in the Alliance." Syrah smiled. "Process their application. Send them our standard welcome package." The aide hesitated. "Ma'am, some people in the Senate are saying we are expanding too fast, that we cannot protect everyone, that we should focus on our own borders." Syrah shook her head. "Those people do not understand what we went through. They do not understand what the invasion taught us." She stood up slowly, her old bones aching, and walked to the window. Outside, New Geneva sparkled in the sunlight. A city built on the ashes of the old, filled with survivors and their children. "We learned that being alone is the worst thing in the universe," she said. "We learned that no one should face extinction without help. We learned that the strong have a duty to protect the weak." She turned back to her aide. "Process the application. Welcome them to the Alliance. And tell them they are not alone anymore." 100 years after the invasion, humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Not an empire built on conquest. Not a federation built on trade. Something new. Something better. A family. The old powers complained. They said humans were arrogant. They said humans were interfering in matters that did not concern them. They said humans would eventually demand payment for their protection. That when a young species faced extinction, humanity came. When a peaceful civilization was threatened, humanity fought. When the Council debated and delayed and calculated costs, humanity acted. They remembered the day the sky burned, and they made sure no one else would have to face that darkness alone.